The howling wind carried her sobs across the desolate plains, as Sophia Turner clutched her thin shawl around her trembling shoulders. The bitter Wyoming winter of 1876, showing no mercy to the young widow huddled beside a weathered grave marker. Her tears froze against her pale cheeks, each drop a tiny crystal monument to her grief. At 23, she had not expected to be alone in this harsh frontier, with nothing but memories and mounting debts to keep her company. Vaughn Valenti watched from atop his chestnut stallion, the strangers weeping piercing through the usual stoicism he wore like his well-worn duster. He had ridden into Sweetwater Valley with intentions of passing through, not getting entangled in someone else's sorrow. Yet something about the solitary figure shivering in the cemetery at dusk stirred something long dormant in his chest. "Madam," he called, dismounting with practiced ease, his spurs jangling softly against the frozen ground. "Storm's coming, shouldn't be out here alone." Sophia startled, her reddened eyes widening at the tall figure approaching her. His face was partially shadowed by his wide-brimmed hat, but she could make out a strong jawline softened by concern. "I'm quite all right," she responded, her voice betraying her with a crack. "Just saying goodbye." Vaughn glanced at the simple wooden cross, the name Benjamin Turner carved with careful precision. The dates indicated he'd been just 26 when he passed, barely 3 months ago. "Your husband?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Sophia nodded, attempting to stand but finding her limbs stiff from the cold and prolonged kneeling. Without hesitation, Vaughn extended his hand, which she accepted after a moment's hesitation. His grip was firm, warm through her thin gloves. "Been sitting too long in this cold," he observed. "You'll catch your death." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Perhaps that would be a mercy. The raw desperation in her voice struck him harder than any physical blow. Without another word, Vaughn shrugged off his heavy coat and draped it around her shoulders. The sudden warmth enveloped her, along with the scent of leather, pine, and something distinctly masculine. "I can't accept this," she protested weakly, though her body betrayed her as she clutched the edges closer. "You can and you will," he replied, his tone gentle but firm. "Now, let me take you home before this weather turns worse." The first fat snowflakes began to fall as Vaughn helped Sophia onto his horse. He walked alongside, leading the animal down the winding path toward the small collection of buildings that constituted Sweetwater. His own body felt the bite of the cold without his coat, but he'd endured worse in his 30 years of life. "You're new here," Sophia observed, breaking the silence between them. "Just passing through." "That was the plan," he responded, his breath visible in the frigid air. "Name's Vaughn Valenti." "Sophia Turner," she offered in return, "though everyone here just calls me the Widow Turner now." The title seemed to weigh on her as heavily as her grief. As they approached a small, weathered cabin on the outskirts of town, Sophia's face tightened with worry. "This is my home, what's left of it." The modest dwelling showed signs of neglect, a broken window patched with cloth, missing roof shingles, and a door that hung slightly askew on its hinges. It spoke of a struggle that extended beyond emotional grief. "Your husband, what happened to him?" Vaughn asked as he helped her dismount. "Fever took him," she replied, fumbling with a key. "After the mining accident crushed his leg, he lingered for weeks." Her hands trembled too much to unlock her door. Gently, Vaughn took the key from her fingers and opened the door. Inside, the cabin was clean but sparse, with few comforts. A small iron stove sat cold in the corner, and the interior was nearly as frigid as the outdoors. "You've got no fire going," he observed, concern deepening his already serious expression. "No wood left," she admitted, removing his coat and attempting to return it. "The money ran out last week. I've been trying to find work," but she stopped herself, pride still evident despite her circumstances. Vaughn refused to take back his coat. "Keep it for now." His eyes scanned the room, taking inventory of her situation. "You have any food in the house?" Her silence was answer enough. "Wait here," he instructed, heading back out into the swirling snow. Less than an hour later, Vaughn returned with an armload of firewood, followed by the local shopkeeper's son carrying supplies. He set about building a fire while the boy deposited flour, beans, coffee, and other necessities on her small table. "I can't accept charity," Sophia protested, watching as warmth began to spread through her cold home for the first time in days. "It's not charity," Vaughn replied, stoking the growing flames. "It's a loan. You can repay me when you're back on your feet." After the shopkeeper's boy left, Sophia watched as this stranger moved about her kitchen with surprising efficiency, preparing a simple but hearty stew. "Where did you learn to cook?" she asked, wrapping herself in a threadbare blanket. 10 years on the trail teaches a man to feed himself or starve," he answered, a hint of a smile softening his weathered features. "I was a cavalry scout for a spell, then drove cattle up from Texas a few times." As they shared the meal, Sophia found herself speaking more than she had in months. She told him of her journey west with Benjamin 3 years prior, full of dreams for their future. How they'd scraped together enough to buy this small plot of land, with plans to build something larger once the mine paid out. "Now the bank's threatening to take the land," she concluded, staring into her empty bowl. "I have until the end of winter to settle the debt." Vaughn listened quietly, his blue eyes thoughtful. "What will you do?" "Keep looking for work," she said with determination that belied her fragile appearance. "I can sew, cook, clean. I was teaching some of the children before Benjamin fell ill. No family to return to," she shook her head. "My parents died years ago. Benjamin was all I had." As the evening deepened, Vaughn insisted on sleeping in the small chair by the stove to keep the fire going through the night. Despite her protests, he was unmoved. "I've slept on rock and sand for weeks at a time, madam. This chair is luxury by comparison." Morning came with cleared skies and brilliant sunshine that belied the bitter cold. Sophia woke to the aroma of coffee and found Vaughn already stoking the fire, his tall frame hunched over the small stove. "You're still here," she observed, a note of surprise in her voice. "Said I would be," he replied simply, pouring her a cup of the steaming brew. "Thought I might help with some repairs today if you'd allow it." Over the next few days, a routine developed. Vaughn would rise early, tend to his horse, and then set about fixing what needed mending around Sophia's home. The broken window was replaced, the door rehung properly, and the roof patched before the next snowfall. In town, people noticed the stranger's presence at the widow's cabin and whispers began. Sophia found him at the well one morning hauling water. "You don't have to stay," she said. "The gossips in town are already talking." Vaughn paused, bucket in hand. "Do their words put food on your table or keep you warm at night?" "No, but then they matter little," he concluded. "Unless you want me to go." The thought of returning to her solitary existence sent an unexpected pang through her heart. "No," she admitted softly, "I don't." That evening, as they sat by the fire, Sophia noticed Vaughn was unusually quiet. "Something's troubling you," she observed, setting aside her mending. He nodded slowly. "Got word of work up north. Cattle ranch needs hands for the winter." Her heart sank, though she forced a smile. "That's good news for you. Could be good news for both of us," he said carefully. "Ranch owner's wife needs help with the household and the children. Pays well, includes room and board." Sophia's eyes widened. "You found me work, if you want it," he confirmed, "but there's a condition." "What kind of condition?" she asked, suddenly wary. Vaughn shifted uncomfortably, his usual confidence faltering. "Ranch owner's particular about who he employs. Only takes on married folk, says they're more reliable." The implication hung in the air between them. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. "Are you suggesting?" "A marriage of convenience," he clarified quickly. "On paper only. You get the job, somewhere safe to live, money to pay off your debts. Come spring, if you wish to dissolve the arrangement, I wouldn't stand in your way." Sophia stared at him, trying to process his offer. "You would do that? Tie yourself to a stranger?" "You're hardly a stranger anymore, Sophia," he said softly. "And yes, I would." She looked around her small cabin, the home she'd shared with Benjamin. Despite Vaughn's repairs, it remained a place of struggle and grief. The practical side of her recognized the sense in his proposal, but her heart ached at the thought of replacing her husband's name with another's. "I need time to think," she whispered. "Of course," he nodded, rising from his chair. "I'll check on the horses." Alone, Sophia's mind raced. Marriage to Vaughn would be a business arrangement, nothing more, yet in the short time she'd known him, he'd shown more kindness than many who'd known her for years. Was it dishonest to accept his offer when she couldn't promise her heart? When Vaughn returned, she had her answer. "I accept your proposal," she said steadily, "but I want honesty between us. This is a partnership for mutual benefit, not a true marriage." His expression remained unreadable as he nodded. "Agreed. We'll speak to the preacher tomorrow." The ceremony at Sweetwater's small church was brief and sparsely attended. Sophia wore her best dress, a faded blue cotton that had seen better days, and Vaughn wore a clean shirt with his usual dark trousers. The preacher, though puzzled by the hasty union, performed his duty without question. "You may kiss the bride," he prompted at the conclusion. Vaughn hesitated, then leaned forward to place a chaste kiss on Sophia's cheek. The simple contact sent an unexpected warmth through her body. "Mrs. Valenti," he said quietly, offering his arm. The name felt foreign on her ears. Just 3 days after becoming Vaughn's wife in name, they departed Sweetwater, leaving behind the grave that had anchored Sophia to her past. She had settled her debts with the bank and arranged for a neighbor to watch over the property until spring, when she would decide whether to sell or return. The journey north took 4 days, through snow-covered landscapes that stole the breath with their beauty and danger. They traveled in a small wagon Vaughn had purchased, packed with Sophia's meager belongings. At night, they camped by the trail, Vaughn always insisting she take the tent while he slept under the stars or in the wagon. On the 3rd night, a blizzard forced them to share the small tent. They lay side by side, a respectful distance between them, listening to the wind howl outside. "Tell me about yourself," Sophia said into the darkness. "I've married a man I barely know." There was a long silence before Vaughn spoke. "Not much to tell that you'd want to hear." "Try me," she pressed gently. He sighed. "Born in Boston to Italian immigrants. Father worked the docks, mother took in laundry. Both gone now, left home at 16 after a disagreement with my father. Worked my way west, doing whatever jobs came along. And have you been married before?" she ventured. "No," he replied simply. "Never stayed in one place long enough to consider it." "Yet here you are, married to a widow you found crying in a graveyard," she observed. She heard him shift beside her. "Here I am," he agreed. "Why?" The question that had been burning in her mind finally escaped. "Why would you offer your name to someone you just met?" The canvas walls of the tent snapped in the wind as he considered his answer. "Because sometimes a person just needs someone to stand beside them until they can stand on their own again." His words settled into her heart, nestling into a space she thought had died with Benjamin. The rocking R ranch was larger than Sophia had imagined, with a sprawling main house and numerous outbuildings spread across a snow-blanketed valley. The owner, Harold Reeves, was a barrel-chested man with a booming voice and suspicious eyes. His wife, Martha, was thin and sharp-featured, with an efficiency about her that Sophia immediately respected. "So you're Valenti's wife," Martha said, appraising Sophia as they stood in the warm kitchen. "He didn't mention how young you are." "I'm 23, madam," Sophia replied, standing straight despite her exhaustion from travel. Martha nodded briskly. "Well, I need someone with a level head and strong back. 5 children in this house, plus all the cowhands to feed during roundup." "Think you can handle that?" "Yes, madam," Sophia answered confidently. "I'm not afraid of hard work." "Good, you'll have Sundays to yourselves and 1 evening off each week. You and your husband will take the cabin near the south pasture. It's small but sound." The cabin proved to be twice the size of Sophia's home in Sweetwater, with 2 small bedrooms, a common area with a stone fireplace, and a lean-to kitchen. It was simply furnished but clean and well-maintained. "This is more than generous," Sophia remarked as Vaughn brought in their belongings. "Reeves takes care of his people," Vaughn observed, "as long as they earn their keep." Their routine quickly established itself. Vaughn rose before dawn to work with the cattle and horses, while Sophia walked to the main house to assist Martha with breakfast for the family and ranch hands. The days were long but satisfying, filled with purposeful work that left little time for dwelling on the past. At night, they would return to their cabin, often too tired for more than a simple meal and brief conversation before retiring to their separate rooms. The arrangement was exactly as promised, a marriage in name, only yet Sophia found herself increasingly aware of Vaughn's presence. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the careful gentleness of his calloused hands, the deep rumble of his rare laughter. Winter deepened, and with it came a blizzard that kept everyone confined to their dwellings for 3 days. Trapped in the cabin together, Sophia and Vaughn found themselves truly talking for the first time since their arrival at the ranch. Seated before the fire, a quilt wrapped around her shoulders, Sophia watched as Vaughn whittled a piece of wood with practiced precision. "What are you making?" she asked. He turned the object in his hands. "Horse. Youngest Reeves' boy admired my stallion, thought he might like this." She smiled, noting the detailed musculature already emerging from the block. "You're good with your hands." "Had a lot of time to practice," he replied, continuing his work. "Long nights on the trail with nothing but a knife and whatever wood I could find. Do you miss it? The traveling?" She asked. He considered the question longer than she expected. "Sometimes, the freedom of it, but there's something to be said for a warm hearth and the same horizon each morning. I never thought I'd leave Sweetwater," she admitted. "Benjamin and I had planned our whole future there." Vaughn's hands stilled. "Do you regret coming here?" "No," she answered truthfully. "I'm grateful for what you did for me. I just wonder sometimes what he would think seeing me now." "A man who loved you would want you to survive," Vaughn said quietly, "to find your way forward." Their eyes met across the space between them, an unspoken understanding passing between them. For the first time, Sophia wondered if there could be more to their arrangement than practicality. As winter began to loosen its grip on the land, Sophia found herself settling into life at the Rocking R. The Reeves children had taken to her, especially 10-year-old Emily, who shadowed her whenever possible. Martha's initial reserve had warmed to grudging respect, and even Harold nodded approvingly when she managed to stretch provisions during a late-season storm that delayed supply deliveries. One evening in early March, Sophia returned to the cabin to find it empty. Vaughn had mentioned riding the far pastures, but darkness had fallen hours ago. Concern gnawed at her as she prepared a simple stew and waited. When hoofbeats finally approached, she rushed to the door, relief flooding through her. But instead of Vaughn, it was Toby, one of the younger ranch hands. "Mrs. Valenti," he said, removing his hat. "Mr. Reeves sent me. There's been an accident." The world tilted beneath her feet. "Vaughn." "Is he?" "He's alive, madam," Toby assured her quickly. "Horse spooked at a rattler and threw him. Doc's with him at the main house now." Sophia grabbed her shawl, not bothering with a coat despite the evening chill. She ran most of the way to the main house, her heart pounding in her ears. Not again, she thought desperately. I can't lose someone again. The realization that she considered Vaughn hers to lose struck her as she reached the porch. Martha met her at the door. "He's conscious. Broken arm and some nasty bruises, but the doctor says he's lucky. No head injuries." Sophia followed her to a downstairs bedroom where Vaughn lay on a bed, his left arm splinted and bandaged. His face was pale beneath his tan, with a purple bruise blooming along his jawline. His eyes, however, were alert and found hers immediately. "Sophia," he said, relief evident in his voice. "I'll leave you too," Martha said tactfully, closing the door behind her. Sophia moved to his bedside, her hands fluttering uselessly above his injured form. "They said your horse threw you." "Damn fool animal," he muttered. "Rattlesnake wasn't even close to him." Without thinking, she reached out to smooth his disheveled hair from his forehead. You scared me. He caught her wrist with his good hand, his touch gentle despite his strength. I'm sorry. Something in his gaze held her motionless. For months they had maintained a careful distance, adhering to the terms of their arrangement. But in this moment, with the fear of losing him still fresh, that distance felt unbearable. I thought, she swallowed hard. I thought I was going to lose you too. Vaughn's expression softened. Takes more than a spooked horse to get rid of me. Good, she whispered, because I don't want to lose you. The admission hung between them, more significant than either had allowed before. Sophia, he began carefully. Our arrangement has become more than an arrangement to me, she finished for him. I didn't expect it, I didn't want it, but here we are, he squeezed her hand. Here we are, he echoed. It was another week before Vaughn was well enough to return to their cabin, and another month before he could resume most of his duties at the ranch. During his recovery, something fundamental shifted in their relationship. The pretense of a marriage of convenience gradually gave way to genuine companionship, to shared laughter and lingering glances, to the tentative exploration of feelings neither had anticipated. On a warm evening in late April, they sat on the small porch of their cabin, watching the sunset paint the western sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Vaughn's arm had healed enough that he no longer needed the sling, though he still favored it slightly. Spring's almost here for good, he observed. You'll be able to return to Sweetwater soon if you still want to. Sophia turned to look at him, studying the strong profile that had become so dear to her. Is that what you think I want? He kept his eyes on the horizon. It's what we agreed to. Once winter passed, you'd be free to go your own way. And what if my way is here now? She asked softly. What if I don't want to leave? Now he did look at her, his expression guarded but hopeful. Sophia, I don't want you to feel obligated. What we did the marriage, it was to help you through a difficult time. And it did, she acknowledged, but somewhere along the way it became real to me. She took a deep breath. I've fallen in love with you, Vaughn, not out of gratitude or obligation, but because of who you are. The man who gave me his coat when I was cold, his name when I was alone, and his heart when I thought mine was beyond repair. For a long moment he was silent, and Sophia feared she had misread everything. Then his hand, warm and solid, covered hers. When I found you in that cemetery, he said, his voice low and earnest, I was just passing through, had no intention of stopping for more than a night. Then I saw you and something. He shook his head slightly. Something told me my wandering days were over. Hope blossomed in her chest. Are you saying, I'm saying I love you, Sophia Valenti, he stated simply. Have for some time now, just didn't think it was fair to tell you given our arrangement. She laughed, a sound of pure joy. We've been quite proper with each other, haven't we? His smile was slow and warm. Too proper, maybe? With a courage born of certainty, Sophia moved closer to him. Perhaps it's time to truly begin our marriage. Vaughn's hand came up to cup her cheek. Are you sure? In answer, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, a question and an answer all at once. Then his arm circled her waist, drawing her closer as the kiss deepened into something that spoke of long restrained desire and newfound hope. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Vaughn rested his forehead against hers. I never expected to find a home in someone, he confessed. Always thought it would be a place. For me too, she agreed. After Benjamin died, I thought my chance at happiness died with him. I was wrong. That night, they truly became husband and wife, their separate bedrooms abandoned for a shared future. As spring blossomed into summer, Sophia wrote to the neighbor watching her property in Sweetwater. She instructed him to sell the cabin and land, closing the final chapter of her previous life. The money from the sale went into a joint account with Vaughn, the beginning of their shared dreams. Harold Reeves, impressed with both their work, offered Vaughn a position as his foreman and Sophia a permanent role managing the household alongside Martha, who admitted to being grateful for the help as her arthritis worsened. They accepted, moving from the small cabin to a larger house closer to the main ranch buildings, with room for the family they both hoped to have. On the anniversary of the day they met, Vaughn surprised Sophia with a gift, a small wooden jewelry box he had carved himself, with intricate wild roses decorating the lid. "It's beautiful," she breathed, running her fingers over the detailed work. "Open it," he urged. Inside, nestled on a bed of soft cloth, lay a gold band set with a small pearl. "I know you wear my ring," he said, referring to the plain band they'd purchased for their wedding ceremony, "but I wanted to give you something that wasn't part of our arrangement. Something that's just because I love you." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked from the ring to her husband's face. "You continually surprise me, Vaughn Valenti." "Good," he smiled, taking the ring and sliding it onto her finger above her wedding band. "I plan to keep doing that for the next 50 years or so." 1 year after that, their daughter Eliza was born, followed 2 years later by their son Daniel. The rocking R became their permanent home, with Vaughn eventually purchasing a share in the ranch when Harold decided to semi-retire. Sometimes, on clear, cold evenings, Sophia would wrap herself in the coat Vaughn had given her that first night, now worn and patched, but still treasured, and stand outside their home, gazing at the stars. She would remember the desperate widow she had been, crying alone in a cemetery, and marvel at the journey that had brought her to this life full of love and purpose. And always, before the cold could truly touch her, Vaughn would come to stand beside her, his arms strong around her waist, his presence a reminder that even in the harshest winter, spring would come again. "What are you thinking about?" he would ask, pressing a kiss to her temple. And Sophia would smile, leaning into the warmth of the man who had given her his coat when she was cold, his name when she was alone, and his heart when she needed it most. "I'm thinking about how sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of a better one," she would answer. And together, they would return to the warmth of their home, their hands entwined, their future stretching before them like an endless prairie beneath an open sky.